Victoria Chen had become a master of silence. For long years, she had worked beside Julian Drake, the brilliant CEO of Drake Enterprises, and in all that time, she had learned to move through his world like a ghost. She anticipated his needs before he voiced them. She solved problems before they became crises. She kept his entire empire running smoothly from her desk outside his corner office. Every morning began the same way. Victoria arrived at the sleek downtown headquarters at 7 o'clock sharp. She brewed Julian's preferred dark roast coffee with a hint of cinnamon. She arranged his schedule with military precision. She prepared briefing documents for every meeting. By the time Julian stepped off the private elevator at 8:15, his world was perfectly organized and ready for him. Julian Drake was 36 years old and had built Drake Enterprises from nothing into a technology giant worth billions. His face graced the covers of business magazines. His decisions moved markets. With his dark hair always perfectly styled, his gray eyes sharp as steel, and his custom suits that fit him like armor, he embodied success in every way. He also walked past Victoria every single morning without a word. No greeting. No acknowledgement. Just the faint scent of his expensive cologne and the sound of his confident footsteps on the marble floor. Victoria had stopped expecting courtesy 3 years ago. She was part of the infrastructure. Essential, but invisible. On this particular Wednesday morning in April, Victoria was organizing contracts when her phone buzzed. Her friend Rachel had sent a text reminding her about Owen Mitchell, the marketing consultant she had met 2 weeks earlier at a coffee shop near the office. The meeting had been accidental and wonderful. Victoria had been grabbing lunch when she bumped into a tall man with warm hazel eyes and an easy smile. Owen had laughed off the collision, insisted on buying her replacement sandwich, somehow made her laugh more in 20 minutes than she had in months. He had asked for her number with such genuine interest that Victoria found herself saying yes without hesitation. They had been texting constantly since then. Owen was different from anyone Victoria had ever known. He asked about her dreams. He remembered small details from their conversations. He made her feel like she mattered as a person, not just as someone who kept calendars and answered phones around noon. The elevator doors opened to reveal a delivery person carrying an extravagant arrangement of pink peonies and white lilies. The flowers were stunning, arranged in a crystal vase that probably costs more than Victoria's monthly rent. "Delivery for Victoria Chen," the young woman announced. Victoria's heart skipped. "That's me." She signed for the flowers with trembling hands. The card inside read, "Victoria, I know you spend your days making everyone else's life better. Let me spend an evening making yours wonderful. Dinner at the Azure Room this Saturday at 7. I already made the reservation. Please say yes, Owen." The Azure Room was legendary. People waited months for a table there. Victoria felt warmth spread through her chest. When was the last time someone had put this much thought into something for her? She was still smiling at the flowers when she sensed someone watching her. Victoria looked up to find Julian standing in his office doorway, staring at the arrangement with an expression she had never seen before. His jaw was tight. His gray eyes had darkened to almost black. His entire body seemed rigid with something she could not name. His voice was clipped, each word sharp. "No. Just a friend being kind? Must be quite a friend." Julian's gaze shifted to the card in her hand. She saw him read it, saw his expression harden even further before he turned abruptly. "I need the quarterly projections revised by 4. Include the international market analysis. They're already updated and in your inbox. I sent them an hour ago." Julian paused mid-step, clearly surprised. He nodded once, then disappeared into his office. The door closed with unusual force. Victoria frowned at the closed door. Something felt wrong. Julian had never asked about her personal life before. He barely acknowledged she had one. The rest of the week felt different. Julian was suddenly everywhere. He called her into meetings she normally handled independently. He asked her opinion on decisions he usually made alone. He questioned her about weekend plans with an intensity that felt completely out of character. On Friday afternoon, Victoria confirmed her Saturday dinner with Owen via text. She was genuinely excited. Owen made her feel seen and valued in ways she had forgotten were possible. 30 minutes later, Julian called her into his office. "Victoria, I need you here Saturday evening. Conference call with our London partners at 8. Her stomach dropped. "Julian, I have plans Saturday evening. Important plans." His expression turned cold. "More important than a $50 million partnership? I've prepared all the materials. You can handle this call without me. I specifically need you there." His tone left no room for argument. "This is not optional, Victoria." Anger flared inside her chest. This could have been scheduled for Monday. I marked Saturday as unavailable in the shared calendar 2 weeks ago. Julian leaned forward, his gray eyes boring into hers. "Is this about those flowers? About that dinner?" Victoria's breath caught. So he had been paying attention after all. "This is about my personal time. Something I'm entitled to have." The air between them crackled with tension Victoria did not understand. Julian's jaw clenched and unclenched. Something flickered in his eyes that looked almost like pain. "Fine," the word came out harsh. "Go to your dinner. I'll manage alone." Victoria should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt unsettled by the way Julian was looking at her. Like he was seeing her for the first time, and the sight somehow hurt him. Saturday evening arrived wrapped in anticipation. Victoria chose a deep blue dress that made her feel confident and beautiful. Owen was waiting at the Azure Room with that same warm smile. Standing when she arrived and pulling out her chair like she was someone precious. "You look incredible," he said. And his eyes told her he meant every word. Dinner was perfect. Owen was attentive and funny. He asked about her dreams and actually listened to her answers like they mattered. He told her about his passion for helping small businesses grow, about his volunteer work teaching marketing to entrepreneurs in underserved communities. Victoria found herself relaxing, laughing, feeling seen in ways that made her heart feel full. But somewhere in the back of her mind, she kept remembering Julian's face when he saw those flowers. The tension in his voice when he asked about her dinner plans, the way he had looked at her in his office like she was something he had lost before he even knew he had it. When Owen walked her to her car and kissed her cheek softly, promising to call her soon, Victoria smiled. But as she drove home through the city lights, her mind was not on the kind consultant with the warm smile. It was on the grade CEO who had finally learned to see her, and she had no idea what to do with that knowledge. Monday morning brought an unexpected surprise. When Victoria arrived at her desk at 7 o'clock, there was a small white box waiting for her. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm shaped like a tiny pen. The kind of thoughtful gift that showed someone had been paying attention. There was no card. No note. Nothing to indicate who had left it. But through the glass wall of his office, Julian Drake was watching her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. Victoria picked up the box and walked straight into his office without knocking. Julian looked up from his laptop, his expression carefully neutral. "Did you send this?" Victoria asked directly, holding up the bracelet. Julian leaned back in his leather chair, studying her face with those penetrating gray eyes. "You've used the same pen for 4 years. A silver fountain pen, with your initials engraved on it. I thought you might appreciate the symbolism." Victoria's heart hammered against her ribs. "Julian, what are you doing?" "Paying attention." His voice was quiet but firm. "Something I should have done a long time ago? I cannot do this now." Victoria set the box on his desk. "After 4 years of treating me like furniture, you do not get to suddenly decide I'm worth your notice just because someone else saw me first." Muscle ticked in Julian's jaw. "You think that's what this is? Competition? What else could it be?" Victoria felt frustration bubbling up inside her chest. "For 4 years, Julian. For years of perfect coffee and flawless schedules and anticipating your every need. And not once did you see me as anything more than your assistant." Julian stood up, coming around the desk to stand close to her. Too close. Victoria could see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes that she had never noticed before. Could smell his cologne. Could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You're right," he said quietly. "I've been blind and selfish and completely oblivious. But seeing those flowers on your desk, seeing that reservation card, something inside me broke open. I spent the entire weekend thinking about you having dinner with another man. Laughing with him? Letting him see all the incredible things about you that I've been too stupid to appreciate. Victoria's breath caught in her throat. Julian, I'm seeing Owen. He's kind and attentive, and he treats me like I matter. You do matter. Julian's voice dropped even lower. You've always mattered, Victoria. I just didn't know how to show it. Before Victoria could respond, her phone rang. Owen's name flashed on the screen. The moment shattered like glass. Julian stepped back immediately, his expression closing off. You should answer that. I'm sure he's waiting. Victoria fled to her desk, her hands shaking as she answered the call. Owen's warm voice filled her ear, asking about her week and suggesting lunch on Wednesday. She agreed, but her mind was still trapped in Julian's office, replaying his words, trying to understand what was happening. The following days became a careful dance of tension and confusion. Owen continued to be wonderful. He took her to art galleries and small concerts. He texted her good morning and asked about her day. He made her laugh and feel valued in ways that were simple and genuine. But Julian was everywhere at work. He found reasons to need her input. He stayed late working alongside her. In those quiet evening hours, they talked about things that had nothing to do with business. Victoria learned that Julian had built his company to prove something to a father who had never believed in him. That he worked endless hours because he was afraid of stopping long enough to feel lonely. That he had pushed everyone away for so long that he had forgotten how to let anyone in. And Victoria found herself softening despite her better. Judgment on Wednesday. Victoria met Owen for lunch at a charming cafe downtown. He was his usual attentive self, holding her hand across the table and telling her about a new client he was excited about. But Victoria felt distracted, her mind drifting back to the office where Julian was probably working through lunch alone. You seem far away, Owen said gently. Squeezing her hand, Victoria forced herself to focus. I'm sorry. Work has been intense lately, your boss. Owen's hazel eyes showed understanding. You've mentioned him a few times? He sounds demanding. He is. Victoria paused, then added quietly, he's also become complicated. Owen studied her face for a long moment. Complicated how? Victoria opened her mouth to explain, then closed it again. How could she put into words something she barely understood herself? The way Julian looked at her now made her feel seen in ways that were both thrilling and terrifying. The way her heart raced when he stood too close. The way she found herself thinking about him at odd moments throughout the day. Not entirely sure, she finally admitted. Owen nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful but not angry. Victoria, I really like you. I think we could have something special. But I also know when someone's heart is somewhere else. Owen, I'm not trying to lead you on. I genuinely enjoy spending time with you. I know you do, he smiled. But there was sadness in it, and I'm not going anywhere. But I think you need to figure out what's happening with your boss before you can fully be present with me. His understanding somehow made Victoria feel worse. Owen was everything she should want. Kind, attentive, emotionally available. So why did her heart keep pulling her back to Julian's complicated intensity? That evening, Victoria stayed late, finishing a presentation for Thursday's board meeting. Around 8 o'clock, Julian emerged from his office, carrying 2 takeout containers from her favorite Thai restaurant. You haven't eaten? He stated. Setting one container on her desk, Victoria looked up in surprise. How did you know I like Thai food? You order from there every Thursday. Julian pulled up a chair next to her desk, something he had never done before. Green curry with extra vegetables. No spice. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Julian spoke quietly. I know I have no right to ask you this. No right to interfere with your life after ignoring you for so long. But I need to know something. Victoria set down her fork. What? When you're with him, with Owen, are you happy? The question hung in the air between them. Victoria thought about Owen's warm smile, his easy affection, his genuine kindness. Then she thought about the way her heart raced when Julian looked at her, the way her breath caught when he stood close, the way every nerve in her body seemed alive and aware when he was near. I don't know, she whispered honestly. Julian reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek for just a moment. "I was content before," Julian said quietly. "My life was ordered and successful, and exactly what I thought I wanted. Then I saw those flowers on your desk and realized I had been living in black and white. And you, Victoria, you're every color I never knew existed." Victoria's eyes burned with unshed tears. "This isn't fair, Julian. You cannot just decide you want me now. Feelings don't work that way, I know." He dropped his hand but didn't move away. "I know I have no right to ask you to give me a chance, but I'm asking anyway. Because the thought of watching you walk out of this office every evening to meet him is killing me. And I finally understand what I've been missing all this time." Victoria stood up abruptly, needing distance. "I need time, Julian. I need to think. Take all the time you need." Julian stood as well, his gray eyes holding hers. "I'll be here. I'm not going anywhere." As Victoria gathered her things and headed home that night, her mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. Owen represented safety and kindness and everything rational. Julian represented risk, passion, and complications that could destroy. Her carefully ordered life, she had no idea which path her heart would choose, but she knew that whatever decision she made would change everything. Victoria spent the next 3 days in a fog of confusion and emotion. Her mind felt like a battlefield where logic and feeling waged constant war. She went through her work with mechanical precision, but inside, she was unraveling. Owen called her Thursday evening, his voice warm and understanding. "I've been thinking about our lunch conversation. I want you to know there's no pressure from my side, Victoria. Take whatever time you need." His kindness made her chest ache. "Owen, you deserve someone whose heart isn't divided." "Maybe," he said gently. "But I also think you deserve to be honest with yourself about what you really want. Not what makes sense. Not what's safe. What you actually want." After they hung up, Victoria sat in her apartment, staring at the city lights outside her window. Owen's words echoed in her mind. What did she actually want? She thought about the past 4 years. How she had poured herself into making Julian's life perfect while making herself invisible. How she had accepted crumbs of acknowledgement and convinced herself it was enough. How she had become so small and quiet that she had almost forgotten. She deserved to take up space in the world. Then Owen had arrived and reminded her what it felt like to be seen, to be valued, to matter as a person beyond her usefulness. But Julian had awakened something different inside her, something fierce and complicated and deeply real. When he looked at her now, she felt like she was standing on the edge of something vast and terrifying and impossibly beautiful. Friday. Morning arrived with gray skies and the promise of rain. Victoria walked into the office to find Julian already at his desk, looking like he hadn't slept in days. There were dark circles under his eyes. His usually perfect hair was slightly disheveled. His tie was loosened. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression made her heart twist. "Good morning," he said quietly. "You look terrible," Victoria replied, before she could stop herself. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I haven't been sleeping well. Turns out, realizing you've been an idiot for 4 years is bad for rest." Victoria set her bag down and made coffee without thinking. 2 cups, 1 for each of them. She brought Julian his and sat down in the chair across from his desk. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "For 4 years, I made myself small for you. I anticipated your every need and made sure you never had to think about anything beyond your work. I was so good at being invisible that I forgot how to be visible." Julian started to speak, but Victoria held up her hand. "Let me finish. Owen reminded me that I deserve to be seen, that I deserve someone who values me for who I am, not just what I can do for them. And that matters, Julian. That matters so much." "I know," Julian said hoarsely. "And you're right. You deserve all of that and more. But here's what I realized last night." Victoria took a deep breath. "With Owen, I feel safe and valued and appreciated. But with you, I feel alive. And I spent so long just existing that I forgot what being alive even felt like." Hope flickered in Julian's gray eyes, but he remained silent, letting her speak. I'm terrified, Victoria continued, her voice breaking slightly. Because choosing you means choosing something complicated and risky. It means believing that you've actually changed, that you actually see me now. And if I'm wrong, if this is just some temporary fascination that fades once the chase is over, it will destroy me. Julian stood up slowly and came around the desk. He knelt down in front of her chair so they were eye level, taking her hands gently in his. I can't promise you perfect, Victoria. I can't promise that I won't mess up, or that this will be easy. But I can promise you this. I see you now. Really see you? And what I see is the most extraordinary person I've ever known. You're brilliant and kind and stronger than you give yourself credit for. You held my entire world together while I was too blind to appreciate it. Tears spilled down Victoria's cheeks. How do I know this is real? Because I'm terrified too, Julian admitted, his voice raw with emotion. I've built walls around myself for so long that letting you in feels like jumping off a cliff. But I'd rather fall with you than stay safe and alone. Victoria looked into his eyes and saw a vulnerability there that she had never witnessed before. Julian Drake, the man who commanded boardrooms and built empires, was kneeling in front of her, with his heart completely exposed. I need to talk to Owen, she said quietly. He deserves honesty. Julian nodded, releasing her hands even though she could see it cost him. He deserves that. Take whatever time you need. Victoria met Owen for coffee that afternoon. He took one look at her face and smiled sadly. You've made your decision, he said. It wasn't a question. Owen, you are one of the kindest, most wonderful men I've ever met. You reminded me of my own worth when I had forgotten it, and I will always be grateful for that. But your heart is with him. Owen reached across the table and squeezed her hand. It's okay, Victoria. I could see it in your eyes at lunch. The way you talked about him. Even when you were frustrated or confused, there was this spark that only appeared when you mentioned him. I'm so sorry. Don't be. Owen's smile was genuine despite the sadness in his eyes. You taught me something too. You taught me that the right person is worth waiting for, and I hope Julian understands how lucky he is. Thank you, Victoria whispered, for everything, for seeing me when I needed to be seen. You're going to be happy, Owen said with certainty. Just promise me you won't make yourself small for anyone ever again. Not even for him, I promise. That evening, Victoria returned to the office. Most of the staff had gone home. The building was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and air conditioning. Julian was still at his desk, staring at his laptop without really seeing it. Victoria walked into his office and closed the door behind her. Julian looked up, his expression guarded but hopeful. I talked to Owen, Victoria said, and Victoria walked around his desk and stood in front of him. And I told him that my heart had already made its choice. Even though my head was still arguing, even though I'm scared. Julian stood up slowly, searching her face. What did your heart choose? You, Victoria whispered. It chose you. Not because you're safe or easy, but because when I imagine my future, you're the one I see. The real you. Flawed and complicated, and finally willing to let me in. Julian pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her like she was something precious he had almost lost. Victoria could feel his heart racing against her own. I won't let you down, he murmured against her hair. I swear to you, Victoria. I will spend every day proving that you made the right choice. Just don't make me invisible again, Victoria said, pulling back to look at him. Promise me that even when things get comfortable, you'll still see me. I promise. Julian cupped her face gently in his hands. You're impossible to unsee now. You've ruined me for invisibility. When Julian kissed her, it felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time. Terrifying and perfect and absolutely right. Outside the office windows, rain began to fall on the city. But inside, wrapped in Julian's arms, Victoria finally understood what it meant to be truly seen, to be valued, to choose herself even while choosing someone else. She had spent 4 years being invisible. Now she was stepping into the light, and it was brilliant. 3 months later, Victoria still worked as Julian's executive assistant. But now they were partners in every sense of the word. Julian had learned to value her opinions not just professionally, but personally. He asked about her dreams and supported her goals. He made sure she took time for herself. He never let a day pass without telling her she mattered, and Victoria had learned something equally important. She had learned that being seen wasn't about someone else's validation. It was about seeing herself clearly and refusing to settle for anything less than she deserved. Some love stories begin with fireworks. Theirs began with flowers and jealousy and the slow awakening of two. People learning to see beyond their own blindness, and that, Victoria discovered, was the best kind of beginning there was. The end.